Hello, wrestling fans. Hello, games fans. Hello, Tom Colohue fans, because I believe there may or may not be one of you out there somewhere in the world. And welcome to today's WWE SmackDown preview, which I'm going to be affectionately titling the Roman Reigns Show. Because let's be fair, at the moment, SmackDown is very much the Roman Reigns Show. We are live over on YouTube. We are live over on Twitch. If you would join me on either of these, thank you and welcome. You will be able to ask your comments, say whatever you want along the way, and I'll be responding to it as well as I can. And my God, what is going on with my hair? Hi. So usually at this point, it takes a few minutes for people to come in and start asking questions. So this is the point at which I can actually start doing quite a bit of preview talk before it gets a bit lost in how energetic a crowd we have here, which I really quite like the energy. I try and talk a bit slower as we go along. The big news coming out of last week's WWE SmackDown was Shinsuke Nakamura. That was the big news. That was a big topic. And that is what most of the column inches have been dedicated to in the aftermath, because it was a surprise, certainly. It was a very good surprise. And it was something well worth the watching, knowing that Shinsuke Nakamura had been re-elevated in that way. Now, I obviously can't say whether or not he will stay elevated, but as part of tonight's preview, he does have a match lined up against Jey Uso, which means that, well, pretty much everyone who's faced Jey Uso has gone in to face Roman Reigns, including Jey Uso, who once had that match for himself. At least it won't be too difficult to do an Undertaker versus Undertaker for Jey Uso. You've got Jimmy Uso. They don't look exactly the same. Close enough once you put a mask on them. Though, to be fair, The Undertaker also did a really good impersonation of Kane one time. I think he was wrestling with Triple H. Triple H was just on the main event at the time. It was something about Steve Austin, but I remember it well. So Shinsuke Nakamura is someone who I feel is worthy of a match with Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. Shinsuke has been bouncing around quite a bit since his protracted and long-term feud with AJ Styles for the WWE Championship 3 years ago now, the time of the Dream Match, which was a really good match, to be fair. But because they kept branding it as a dream match, it felt like a bit of a letdown by the end of it. It was unusual in that regard. I didn't expect it to be received quite as quietly as it was. So it is what it is. I don't know if there was necessarily some loss of faith in Nakamura. When he first came up, he was defeating John Cena clean, he was defeating Randy Orton clean, and that was in the build to this match of AJ Styles. But things never really kicked into gear all that much. He had a number of very good matches, but I felt he could do a little bit more. I'm still waiting for a strong style match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Aleister Black. Very much waiting for that. I'm very excited by the concept. If anyone has just joined me, please do remember you can support me by clicking like on the video. That will help the place to grow. You can support me by sharing the video, and you can support me by just clicking into the comments and saying something there. You can ask me a question. You can make a comment about what you expect to see on SmackDown, and I'll make sure to try and answer every single one of them in some way. This week, Nakamura will face Jey Uso. I expect Nakamura to get the win, and that for me is building towards Nakamura taking the place of the person who currently has a match with Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. I don't think the current match is going to be long-term, especially with Nakamura getting as much positive attention from the wrestling community as he did. Matt J. Hendricks, welcome with the first comment of the day. He says, I'd be okay with Nakamura beating Roman for the Universal title, so we could get Nakamura versus Bryan at Mania for the Universal title. That would be a very, very good match. I thought we were getting that last year when Nakamura went in, when Daniel Bryan was the Intercontinental Champion and he was feuding with Sami Zayn's little group, which included Nakamura and Cesaro. Unfortunately, that was not to be. It was a confusing one. However, we do have an opportunity now to do what I think is a bit more with Nakamura, but I suspect this will be a one and done, or maybe there'll be a rematch in February, but leading into WrestleMania, it is very unlikely that Roman Reigns is going to have a feud with someone he's already feuding with. Daniel Bryan seems a logical choice for the Royal Rumble. If anyone is interested, I put out a tweet. It is one of my latest tweets saying who you think is going to win the Royal Rumble matches. If you're interested in that, please do jump in and comment there as well, or comment here. Who do you guys think is going to win the Royal Rumble matches at the moment. Ed Fries, welcome, joining me on Twitch, says you think it will be Nakamura instead of Kevin Owens. I do, as a matter of fact. I think, unfortunately for Kevin Owens, they're done with that feud and they are slowly but surely moving on. It's not a great system because I don't think Kevin Owens ever got a fair chance at a match. I don't think he ever really got a fair shot when he wasn't at least getting double teamed. But it seems as though they are moving on from that now. And it could be we see a return to Kevin Owens, or it could be we don't. Pardon me. But I think, unfortunately, we're going to move on from there until we get some sort of tag match where it's Roman and Jay against Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan. That is when I expect Jimmy Uso to return, but that's just a bit of fantasy booking on my side as well. This is a name I may have trouble pronouncing. If I get it wrong, please do let me know. Veal Alongfist says Nakamura versus Bryan in Mania would be amazing. I completely agree. I do think that match is coming. I just don't know if it's coming right now. And we did get a great moment between Nakamura and Bryan at the end of the Gauntlet match. I would like to see the match again because they had a very short time, but really high tempo. It's very good. A user Katana Pawns All, welcome. This is your first comment, so thank you very much for joining me. Says, I don't think Roman should lose the title until SummerSlam. As much as I love Nakamura, as much as I love Daniel Bryan, I think Roman Reigns is in the form of his life right now. I think he's delivering week in, week out the most interesting and compelling storylines. And I think this is why SmackDown is doing so well in the ratings. I think he's doing great things with that Universal Championship, and I would like to see him keep it for a while longer. At the same time, if he does defeat Kevin Owens, if he does beat Shinsuke Nakamura, if he does also defeat Daniel Bryan, who's left? After that, the main event scene starts to look quite slim. So maybe it would be a good idea to have Bryan take the championship as a face champion, at least for a little while, even if he's not a full-time wrestler anymore. And that gives us a few more feuds before Roman would eventually take it back. Or maybe someone like, if you have Randy Orton come across, for example, we could have a Daniel Bryan-Randy Orton feud, which we've had before, admittedly, but we could still do something of it. I'd very much like to see another Roman versus Seth feud. I will say that. Matt says, AJ Styles says Nakamura can be Universal Champion. He has the tools to carry SmackDown as champion. AJ Styles would definitely say that. The respect between Styles and Nakamura is very real. When they first had their interaction at Money in the Bank, leading into what would be their match at WrestleMania, so it was 10 months between it, you could feel the electricity, and I'm pretty sure AJ Styles was singing Nakamura's praises the whole time. Matt also says Bryan Nakamura should be saved when crowds come back. The issue you've got there is it might be a long time before crowds come back, because let's say everyone's vaccinated, you still won't immediately get a full crowd. WWE was struggling to fill crowds for Raw and SmackDown before all this happened, and I think there will be some concern between fans about immediately coming back. Though you will get some who are determined to immediately come back, all power to them. But if you wait too long, you end up in a situation like we've had for a long time, where the big matches aren't happening and people are tuning out. I think that is part of what's happening at Raw as well. It also says, I believe the Royal Rumble winners will be Bayley or Shayna for the women and then Big E or Brock for the men's. Good options. Brock Lesnar's name is coming up quite a lot when I ask people about this. So that means people are excited by the concept. I think absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I think that could be very interesting. Though I would like to get through Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre before we start talking about Brock Lesnar maybe winning. Though I did really love Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg back at WrestleMania 34, I think it was, when the Leapfrog won it. Strange world. Veal says that was 9 out of 10 pronunciation. That's good enough for me. I'm very happy with that. But if I can correct it and get that to a 10 out of 10, if you'd be happier with that, please do let me know. I don't want to be getting names wrong, but I know I have quite a diverse collection of people who will jump in here. I'm not going to say fans. I don't think that's right. But thank you to everyone who has joined so far. I'll say that. For anyone who doesn't know, I am currently live on both YouTube and Twitch. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, and I'm trying to get as many followers on there as possible to get myself ready to essentially start making a living off these things. YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers before you can start making money, whereas on Twitch, you only need 50 followers to start making something. So if you follow me on YouTube but don't follow me on Twitch, and you have a Twitch account, please do jump over there, twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, and leave me a follow. If you're just watching on YouTube and you'd like to keep it that way, by all means, please do drop a like down in the box underneath. That does help me grow, so I really appreciate it. Katana says, if you wanted to prolong Roman's title reign, they could have another roster shakeup following Mania. Very true, they very much could, but I'm very happy with this SmackDown crowd. I really am. After Nakamura, I'd like to see Cesaro get a shot. And honestly, if Cesaro wins the Royal Rumble this year, is anyone going to complain? I wouldn't complain. I know a lot of people want people like Big E and Daniel Bryan. They would be big crowd pleasers. But I think Cesaro would be even more of a crowd pleaser. Just my opinion on that one. Ed says face Brock versus heel Roman is money. And yes, it is. I don't know if they could make Brock a face, though, especially if they start piping in audio for like cheers. I think people could see through that quite easily. Matt also says, seems like Orton in the Rumble is a red herring and is being pulled out for the Fiend match that's being planned. If there is a Fiend match being planned, this is a good way to do that, because I'm not a big fan of the whole, I announce myself for the Royal Rumble, especially when, I think it was last year, they accidentally announced 26, 27 women for the Women's Rumble, and then there were 7 or 8 rumored surprises, including, even on this YouTube channel, I did say that Beth Phoenix would be in, Naomi would be in, but Nia Jax wouldn't be, even though she was fit. I remember that conversation. Good times. So I would like the use of that, especially if they don't announce too many more. Only announce the obvious ones. The Charlotte Flairs, the Randy Ortons, the ones who are always going to be in the Royal Rumble. And then you do have the opportunity to say, hey, Orton's definitely in the Rumble, except he's not. Phyllis says, for Rumble winners, Charlotte for the women and Owens or Bryan for the men. That was perfect pronunciation for non-Finnish speaker. Thank you very much for saying that. I do try my best. I am Irish, so I just try my best in that regard. But I'm also English, which means, unfortunately, I mean, I'm expected to not like different countries. I mean, I do like different countries. I love Italy. Been to Italy the once. Recently went to Madeira. I need to travel more. Matt also says, I disagree. Shayna should have won last year. Charlotte didn't need it. I didn't necessarily say that Charlotte needed it. I was happy with the way they got to things. I expected Shayna to win it. In the build-up, I said that Shayna would win it, expecting that she would and having been told that she would, because Shayna versus Becky was the planned WrestleMania match. We still got that, but Charlotte won so that we would then have the NXT match between Rhea Ripley. I'm glad we had the match between Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. I thought Rhea Ripley was going to win. I'm a big fan of Rhea Ripley. It's a shame. Personally, I feel she could have done really well having retained the NXT Women's Championship. That would have done more for me than the win they had at Survivor Series in that period. But at the same time, I think they still got to the matches they wanted to get to. Matt Hendricks says, back in the day, you had to qualify for the Rumble. It depends on the day. I don't think the roster is quite spread enough for that, but I think maybe there will be qualification matches in the last few weeks once you've announced the big hitters. I also remember Royal Rumbles in, say, 97, 98, where they didn't have enough people to fill a 30-man Royal Rumble, so they were trying desperately to bring back legends just to fill the match, and everyone was repeating on all the matches, so it's better than it was, I'll tell you that. Swaggy, welcome. Swaggy says, I'm pretty sure you answered this question already, but do you think we are getting a Nakamura face turn after last Friday? It's a difficult one. I remember a time after a match with Matt Riddle when AJ Styles came back to the ring and shook hands with the man and then left. At the time, that was construed as a face turn, but they decided to essentially change their minds on that one. Thank you as well, Swaggy, for following me on Twitch. I very much appreciate that. So they changed their minds. When it comes to Nakamura, it could be that they expect this to be a full face turn, and then they change their minds. It could be that people get really behind Adam Pearce, and we end up having that match instead of the match with Nakamura. Wrestling changes a lot more than fans seem to think. And when someone comes in and says, I reported this 3 months ago, but plans change, plans do change. So it could be that the plan was a face turn. Now, the moment with Bryan was very telling. And the fact that Nakamura got destroyed by Roman and Jay afterwards, after fighting 3 matches in a row, that screams face turn to me. But it depends how the WWE now reconnect you with Nakamura. If he's having the match at the Royal Rumble, bring in the violinist change his theme back to what it was. Let the Thunderdome sing along. It'll be a mishmash. It'll be confusing as hell because it won't be in sync and different people will be in and out of sync. But give me that. Just give me that. And I will be on YouTube and on Twitch for a Royal Rumble watch along, and I will definitely be singing along. I'll tell you that. By the way, I am looking for people to join me for that watch along for a bit or for more of it. If you have a streaming setup and you are interested in that, I can send you a link, much like a Zoom call, and we can have you jump in and give some opinions on a match or maybe some other pre-show as well. So let me know if you're interested in that. Sean Garner says, will there be any surprise entrances or returns in both Rumbles? Definitely, but less than you would expect. With everything going on with COVID-19, the WWE want to limit the amount of people coming on site. There are rare exceptions, Legends Night being one of them, but the fact that a week after Legends Night, Drew McIntyre tested positive for coronavirus certainly raises a red flag. So I think they will be trying to limit the people coming in. It is more likely we are going to see quite a few people from NXT. I expect we'll see Xia Li, for example, in the Rumble this year, whereas she was missing last year but appeared the year before. Dakota Kai, I think, is long overdue an appearance in the Royal Rumble. And I suspect we may see a couple of people flown over from NXT UK quietly. But there are question marks about that. Pete Dunne is someone I would definitely think will be in the Rumble. Outside of that, surprise return, probably the most surprising return that I expect to see, will be Naomi again. Because the WWE keep bringing her back at Royal Rumbles. She gets a huge pop and then they forget about her. Unfortunately, I think that's going to happen again. For the men's Rumble, Edge is expected to be back around this time. There are definite, the rumor mill, as it were, the dirt sheets, as it were. But basically, since he was injured, it seemed clear that for January, we were going to be seeing Edge return. So the Royal Rumble's the perfect time, especially if Orton is in the Royal Rumble. Now, if he isn't in the Royal Rumble, we could see Edge return in a non-wrestling capacity if there is any sort of Firefly Funhouse match, injury or no. I think that'd be a great way to use him if he's not fit. But if he is fit, they may scrap the concept of a match with The Fiend and just have him in the Royal Rumble. It may be a case that Orton eliminates Edge this time before The Fiend appears. The Fiend could potentially be a winner, but it'd have to come in late. I spent a lot of time on that one. Matt says, from 2018 to 2019, WWE gave us what we wanted. WWE started to do that last year. They started it with Drew. Going to argue that slightly. They did that last year with Drew. They did that the year before, definitely 2019, which was Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. At the time, those were the two that everybody wanted. Kofi Mania started just afterwards. And then, yeah, the year before, I believe, I'm not sure who it was in 2018. You may have to remind me because I'm not. I don't want to Google in the middle of a stream, but let's Google in the middle of a stream. Royal Rumble winners 2018. It doesn't take that long. It should come straight up. That was the year Nakamura won it. Okay, and I believe it was also the year Asuka won it because they had two Japanese winners in the same night. So yeah, they definitely gave the fans what they wanted. They learned from people booing The Rock. I'll definitely say that. They took a lesson in that one, and that is a good thing. At least they were open to it. But at the same time, there will come a time when heels have to win the Royal Rumble. There will come a time. That is essential. But if they can give us Daniel Bryan, to be blunt, I'd be very surprised if they put Daniel Bryan in a Royal Rumble, knowing the history of Daniel Bryan and Royal Rumbles, and he didn't win it. They've avoided that for several years recently. Okay. Swaggy says, NXT Nakamura just gives you goosebumps. Yes, he does. I miss that Nakamura. Nakamura versus Joe were just great wrestling matches. Nakamura versus Sami. Nakamura versus anyone. Give me Nakamura versus Aleister Black, but stick it in NXT. Also, where is Aleister Black? I miss that, man. Matt says, I don't buy the report. There is no plans for NXT to be in the Rumble. I haven't personally read that report. It just didn't pop up my timeline. But I would be very surprised if that was the case. I do feel there'll be a lot of interconnections, as it were. It also says WWE fired like 10 or 20 people they are going to need from NXT. They did release quite a lot of people who I would say there's enough in the roster, but not if you're excluding people like Drew Gulak. Also, it's a great way to get eyes on NXT. I wouldn't skip people in NXT from the Rumble. I'd definitely have Dakota Kai. I'd definitely have Xia Li. I'd definitely have Pete Dunne. There are options there. Sean says, any news on Tessa Blanchard? I suspect this next time I know something is the next time you guys will know something. I've heard nothing about Tessa Blanchard. Matt Hendricks says, Ciampa is the prediction for a surprise in Men's Rumble. I can see that. Ciampa has not appeared in the Rumble before, but Ciampa has been very open about the fact he doesn't want to leave NXT. So it may not feel right. I know that's the strange thing to say, and it's sort of detached from what's actually happening. But I hope you understand what I mean when I say it may not feel right. It might just be the wrong choice at that time. Just before I get on to the next few questions, if you are watching on YouTube, please do remember to click like. We are at the peak of the people who've been watching so far, and we have more people watching now than we have likes so far. So if you haven't already, please do click like. That helps me grow, get more people in here, give me more questions. Streams go longer, and I'm more encouraged to do them every week, even though I'll be doing them Monday and Friday every week going on forwards. What am I looking at next? Swaggy says, Nakamura and Asuka answering my question about the Royal Rumble 2018. Also, Matt says the same. Mags says, hola, sir. Welcome, Mags. Glad to see you here. You weren't here earlier when I mentioned it, but you were someone I want to talk to about this. During the Royal Rumble, I'm planning on doing a pretty big watch party with some surprise guests and some not surprise guests. So if you are interested in joining for a bit, like maybe the pre-show or maybe a match, or in fact, if you have the energy levels to do a 7-hour stream, because I'm going to be doing that, by all means, please do let me know, because anyone with a streaming setup, I'd like to hear from you, because I'd like to see a few of you on camera joining me right here during the Royal Rumble, which will be my biggest stream yet. Vila also says, yes, give us Ciampa. That seems like a popular thing. Would like to see it. Swaggy asks who I would like to see win the Rumble for the men's and women's. Tempted by Brock Lesnar, got to be honest. But I think Daniel Bryan makes the most sense. I mentioned earlier I would love Cesaro to win the men's Royal Rumble. I just think that would be great. At the same time, Aleister Black is one. Stick him in a feud with Roman Reigns. I'm taking it. I would love that. For the women, Bianca Belair is someone who's really got my attention. And I would really like it if Ember Moon got the win and she went on to face Asuka. Lots of possibilities. Sean says, who's the mystery girl with Xia Li? No idea. I actually haven't seen that segment yet. I've seen clips of what Xia Li's been doing recently, and I very much like it. I really do. A bit more intensity is what she needs, because Xia Li, bless her, she has a fantastic smile, and she's always smiling. Doesn't really work for a heel. It sort of limits what you can do. Apollo Crews was being beaten with this stick for a while by fans as well, so I'm glad she's shown a bit more of an edge and a bit more character in that regard. It opens up some doors. Matt says, I'm shocked members of Sanity weren't in the Rumble 2019 when they were on the main roster. Sanity, yeah. You remember Sanity? Something went really wrong there. Retribution are doing a bit of a Sanity thing at the minute. Something's going really wrong there as well. I don't think the WWE can do a Sanity thing. Matt says Gargano doesn't want to leave NXT and he was in the 2019 Rumble. Yep, that's a fair point. I don't believe he's been as public about it as Ciampa, but he does love it there. And going forwards, he's likely to stay there. He was in a 2019 Rumble. He was briefly called up as a tag team with Ciampa, as I hope not many of you can remember. Mags, I'm not going to click on the comment, but yes, I will send you a DM after this detailing that a bit more. Ooh, also a good question. Matt saying, who do you think will be the Iron Man and Woman of the Rumbles? For anyone who isn't familiar, the Iron Man or Iron Woman is simply the longest serving, as it were. Finn Balor has been a recent Iron Man, and he was fantastic. Sasha Banks has been the Iron Woman in the first Women's Royal Rumble, then Natalya was in the second. I think Charlotte was in the latest one. Right, this is a very tough question because there are a lot of people who could do it. I'd like Daniel Bryan to be an Iron Man. He is technically the Iron Man of Iron Men because of how long he lasted in the greatest Royal Rumble, which is especially great considering how hot it is in Saudi Arabia, and he still managed to do that after Roderick Strong burst his chest open. Roderick Strong would be a good shout. Cesaro for the men. I know I've mentioned his name a few times, but he's definitely someone who has the potential to go all the way in that regard. So Cesaro for the men. They always look for the Iron Man or Iron Woman to be a ring general, someone who's really familiar with all of this and who can remember all the spots. So if someone's in longer than they should be, the Iron Man's job is to go, hey, you should not be in here. I'm eliminating you. For the Iron Woman, Bayley probably. Bayley's had an interesting experience with the Royal Rumbles. She's been in 2 Royal Rumbles and she always enters like 27, 28, and she's never in for more than 5 minutes. Never understand why, because she can last long in matches. They just seem to have decided she ain't breaking no records. Don't know why. Matt also says, imagine Killian Dane in the Rumble. Who's going to eliminate him? It'd be great, though. And Sean Garner says, where has Vanessa Bourne been? Not entirely sure. Genuinely not. Matt says it was Belair in 2020. Thank you very much for that one. Yeah, I remember now, because that Royal Rumble was basically split into 2, wasn't it? The Belair section, like Belair and before, and then after Belair with Charlotte. Unknown percent says, is Roman's title match with Adam Pearce changing for Kevin Owens? I don't believe it's changing for Kevin Owens. I believe it's changing for Shinsuke Nakamura. And as that is our last comment at the moment, I'm going to go back to the preview for a little bit, let some questions build up, and let the room build up a little bit more as well. So looking at the preview, I've talked at quite some length about Nakamura early on and what I expect with him and his match against Jey Uso. So let's talk about the other side of that coin, Roman Reigns. What's going on with Roman Reigns here on the Roman Reigns show at tonight's WWE SmackDown featuring Roman Reigns? I'm a mark. Roman Reigns will be signing the contract for his Royal Rumble match with Adam Pearce. Now, if this match is going to go ahead, all that needs to happen is this contract needs to be signed. If Kevin Owens can get involved and prevent that, more power to him. If Shinsuke Nakamura can get involved, more power to him. If Cesaro can get involved, more power to him. Anyone who is on Nakamura's side should be getting involved in this to make this happen. But also, this means Adam Pearce can potentially try and trick Roman Reigns. I don't think he will. Roman Reigns is one of the only examples right now of a smart heel. It's just not something that happens. When's the last time you actually saw a smart heel? So it's great having that, because it means that Roman won't be tricked. He won't be fooled again. No. And that basically means that if you try and trick him with a contract, he's not going to be dumb and sign it. That's not going to happen. Maybe you can trick Jey Uso into it, because he's been sort of taking on the dumb heel role to make Roman a smart heel, but then Paul Heyman would never let that happen. Who knows? I don't feel they're getting away with trickery. I think at the end of this, Adam Pearce is getting beat up and he's signing it under duress. He'll be basically unconscious and obviously to try and make this work. Will tables be flipped? Not sure. But we know Roman Reigns is going to cut a great promo. And I think Adam Pearce is going to cut a great promo too. I'm excited to see that, and I'm more excited to see who gets involved, because Nakamura could potentially stop Jey Uso from any involvement going forwards in that. For anyone who is recently joining us, I am currently live on YouTube and on Twitch. That is youtube.com/Tom Colohue and twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. You can support me by clicking like on the YouTube video and give me a subscribe and following me on Twitch, or of course sharing this on Twitter to help get people in and help me find additional audience. I'm going to give a quick retweet for anyone who wants to join us at this point. I am previewing SmackDown here on the Roman Reigns show. It will be happening every Friday at this time. That is 6 o'clock my time. We're a half hour into it right now. I'm taking your questions. If you have questions, please do drop them in and I will get to them as soon as. And I'm also previewing SmackDown, so I need to scroll down my list of notes a little bit and get to essentially what's going on next. And there is quite a bit that's still going on, I've got to say. So this one may go a little while. I don't know if I already caught that. Okay, we are here. Matt says, I can see Adam Cole being in there as the Iron Man. That man does have Iron Man written all over him. He's had some very long matches. And he could certainly deliver. Ring General as well. He's got that credential. I doubt they will let someone from NXT be the Iron Man. This isn't a slight on Adam Cole at all. I just think they want someone who's been in the locker room with most of the people there already. And Adam Cole has been in the NXT locker room the whole time, has not been in the locker room with people like your Roman Reigns, it's like your Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy, like Rey Mysterio. I'm listing people from SmackDown because we're doing the SmackDown one. So it may be difficult there. Rey Mysterio is a good shout, actually, just thinking of that. Sean says, how many teams are in the Women's Dusty Classic? Let's find out, shall we? Dusty Classic teams. 4 teams announced so far. So far, there's only 4, which isn't bad considering women's tag teams in NXT are not that available at the moment, so they've needed to create a few. I think ideally they'd bring a few tag teams over from Raw and SmackDown. So I'd like to see Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. I'd like to see the Riot Squad, not necessarily winning it by any stretch, but at least getting to the semi-finals. They can help put over NXT tag teams. I'd like to see them. Matt says, The Fiend, if he's in the Rumble, the last Rumble Matt Bray was in was the 2018 Rumble. If The Fiend is in the Royal Rumble, I would be shocked if he doesn't win it, because that's just a difficult situation for everyone. The Fiend being eliminated from Royal Rumble just doesn't make sense if he's in it. But this also applies to Alexa Bliss, one of the favourites for the Women's Royal Rumble. So I could very much see her winning on that same basis. Matt also says, because The Fiend is in the Rumble, I don't think anyone is eliminating him because people would expect him to win. Agreed. It's one of those, similar to Daniel Bryan way back when, if certain people are in the Royal Rumble, then they have to win the Royal Rumble. They have to. They just have to. Daniel Bryan's one of those, though, so he's definitely in the Rumble. Difficult one, especially with no fans in attendance at the moment. I didn't realize how much forehead I have. Go down here. Go down. Swaggy says, Friday Night SmackDown starring our tribal chief, the Universal World Heavyweight Champion, Roman Reigns. We can go the whole bullet here, because Roman Reigns has a lot of nicknames. It would be WWE's Friday Night SmackDown featuring our tribal chief. I know you said our tribal chef there, and I like that. Our tribal chief, the head of the table, the big dog, the Universal Heavyweight Champion, the little bitch, Roman Reigns. Kevin Owens gets in my head, man. He gets in my head. Matt Hendricks says, I mean, WWE let Bianca Belair, who was a part of NXT in the 2020 Rumble last year. Very true. But I think this is why they sort of split it in half, to make it so that you can have the Iron Woman, as it were, but it is just so that she focuses on so much. And I think it was a bit NXT heavy in that regard. However, it's a good point, and it could be Adam Cole. I think he's got the credentials for it. I think it'd be very convincing in that regard. Matt says, Fightful has reported that WWE is planning to move Mania from March 27th to April 11th. That makes sense to me. I think that was a good move, primarily because I think WrestleMania is always in April. It usually be April 3rd, April 4th, but April 11th is fine. I'm not sure as to the reasons behind the move. There were some rumors, of course, that they were planning to change the venue. Haven't heard anything on that front for a long time, though. Swaggy says, do you think WWE will ever use Andrade? So much talent there. The Andrade versus Rey Mysterio series on SmackDown was amazing. I hope so. Since losing the United States Championship, since his suspension, I haven't seen Andrade used pretty much at all. And I think that is a crying shame. He's an incredibly talented man who puts on incredible matches. He's someone who against Nakamura would be doing magic right now. There's a few less I can see on Raw who would have ideal matches with him. I feel he is someone who maybe doesn't need the right opponent. But on SmackDown, there's a plethora of people. There's Buddy Murphy, for example, would have great matches with Andrade. Or he could spend a bit more time in NXT. There's nothing wrong with that. I would like to see a few people in NXT again and just really spending a bit more time there, bringing that show upwards, just sort of up the ranks, and also getting match time, because so many people are really talented and just don't get any time to do anything with it. And I think that's a real shame. Part of that, Gary Edwards, welcome, your first comment. Samoa Joe return at the Rumble. Samoa Joe, I really want back in a wrestling ring. However, I really don't want to lose Samoa Joe from commentary. That's just difficult. I would love him to stand up from the announce team, walk into the Royal Rumble, win it, and go up against Drew McIntyre. McIntyre versus Samoa Joe is a match I would love to see. So give me that. But also, if he can commentate on his own matches as well, that'd be great. Guinness Gamers Welcome says, happy weekend, Tom, and happy weekend to you as well. It is the beginning of the weekend here. I'm very excited for the next few days and to, and to try and go from there and maybe have a chill weekend. I've streamed, this is my 4th stream this week. I would have liked to do more about some technical difficulties on Thursday, and maybe do more over the weekend. I'm trying to launch some gaming content over on Twitch that is not on YouTube at the moment. Let's just say I always ask during these if people want to see gaming content, and I do not get a positive response. So I might just keep that on Twitch. Also, I need to grow my Twitch in order to get anywhere. Matt Hendrick says, Adam Cole did beat Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins in the same month. He beat Daniel Bryan. Seth Rollins went to a no contest, as I recall. They were very careful in playing that. This was a very big moment for Adam Cole. They clearly have very high hopes for him. And I feel he has an incredible future in the WWE. Whether or not he wants to leave NXT, that for me will decide where he goes next and if he goes anywhere next. Unknown Percent says, is Ronda Rousey going to return at the Royal Rumble match? She is still apparently technically under contract, so she could. But I think that's definitely one that wouldn't happen without fans. And in addition, with Becky Lynch unavailable at the moment due to motherhood, and all power to her, I hope she's having a great time. Seth as well. I don't think Ronda Rousey has the ideal opponent immediately, though I would like to see her take on Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. And Kairi Sane. I miss Kairi Sane. Matt Hendrick says, I can see Andrade being in the Rumble. Wouldn't mind it. Would be very happy to see that. Certainly they may need bodies, so that would make sense. Guinness says, if Adam Pearce is to be replaced at the Rumble, who do you think it'll be? Probably Owens, though. There's a lot of people singing the praises of Kevin Owens for this spot. I do think Nakamura is going to be elevated into that match based on his performance at the Gauntlet match. But if you're thinking Kevin Owens, that's certainly something that could happen, especially with Nakamura already in a match tonight on SmackDown. Swaggy says, Andrade in that NXT title picture will be great. Finn Balor can have a great match with anyone. Hands down. Ed Fries over on Twitch says, the bounce the dates from late March to early April to split them on year and quarterly earnings. That's a really good point. To help the numbers look good, I've heard, but this year is likely to push it back to possibly have some people in a crowd, possibly outside the Thunderdome. Vaccines are going around, and I don't think it'll be too long before we have some limited crowds in the process. But for now, the Thunderdome is ongoing. They do have a contract with the venue that lasts for another couple of months at least. So they will be sticking with no fans at least for the next couple of months. WrestleMania may be their attempted relaunch. But it is a good point. The quarterly numbers come in for every 3 months, and we always see a few big changes in the time. We usually see people let go around the same time every year to accommodate the numbers and everything happening there. So it may be related to that. But as I say, WrestleMania is usually in April. So I'm not sure why it would have been originally announced for March anyway. Matt says, I don't think WWE trusts Joe as a wrestler. I think they see him as injury prone now. I want to be shocked by that, but I do get what you're saying, and I have mentioned it previously. I have mentioned it a few times that there are concerns about Samoa Joe. He has picked up injury after injury after injury. It's a real shame, and I don't think he can afford too many more, especially if he's been picking up concussions. Alexa Bliss, for example, was out for a while because they just weren't sure. They didn't entirely trust getting her back in the ring. And then they did. That said, she hasn't really wrestled for a while now. Her storyline is just too good. She's such a good talker. Guinness Gamers says, if Samoa Joe returns, just get Nigel McGuinness to replace him. He's been taken off of NXT commentary and he's too good to only do 205 in NXT UK. Certainly possible. A viewership of 205 Live in NXT UK is not particularly strong. And if he's not on the NXT commentary, yep, get him straight up. That's someone who could fill the exact same role and do it with the exact same caliber for me. Matt says, according to Rollins, Becky is ready to come back. According to Seth Rollins, Becky was ready to come back on day one. Come on, man. Rollins will say whatever Becky wants him to say. That man is smitten, and it is so nice to see. I don't think WWE is changing the Raymond James Stadium for Mania 37 this time. I don't believe they will. That was a rumor that came out. I haven't heard anything about it since. it looks like they will be staying going forwards, because certainly we're talking potential lawsuit territory here. And that's something that if it was reported erroneously, and I'm not going to throw out anything here, if it does not end up happening, I would think that that would be better for the WWE, if you understand what I'm saying there, because there is a potential for lawsuits and the like, and they have to be careful with the way they present themselves. At the moment, they have to think about little things like that. These things do matter. Guinness Gamers says, do you think there will be a rise in ratings after fans return? Yes, I do think there will. And I think there'll be a rise in beach balls. And I think Cesaro will get more and more over because he'll be trying to break every single one. And people are going to cheer him. Sean Garner, I'm going to take that comment on your next one altogether, so I'll just do them together. After Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, who should be called up from NXT next? Dakota Kai. I'm going to say Dakota Kai because I think Dakota Kai is an incredibly talented person who has endless potential and a real marketability, and is getting good exposure as well from being on Up, Down so much. I wish they hadn't done all this with Twitch channels, because she was tremendous. She was great fun on there, and I'd like to see a lot more of her work. I'd like to see that. Unknown Percent says, did Ricochet sign a 3-year contract in 2019? According to the Wrestling Observer, he is, Ricochet is still signed until, I believe the report said 2024. That is quite a long period of time. Now, if he did sign a 3-year contract, that suggests he also has signed a 3-year contract now, or he may have signed a 5-year contract in 2019. The most interesting part for me is that the Wrestling Observer are the ones who said that they believed he had a 3-year contract, and the Wrestling Observer are the ones who said that he has the contract until 2024. Now, in journalism, that's something that happens quite often, in fact. When it comes to contract stuff, when it comes to anything, quite often you'll see a journalist tweet something or say something when they know people are listening that is either just a tiny piece of a greater puzzle, or in some cases is very much just reporting on a rumor. They are putting that out there so that someone comes and corrects them, and then they get the story. In wrestling journalism, you're kind of not allowed to do that. People don't want to see a piece of the puzzle. People get really, really annoyed if you don't give them the entire finished jigsaw right at the beginning, months in advance. In journalism outside of wrestling, not everything happens at once. And usually you'll see 5 or 6 journalists working together to make one report. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but according to the Wrestling Observer, 2024. Manny says, hello, welcome, Manny. Glad to see you come in. I've read that one from Sean. Matt says, I mean, there are 2 different chances WWE had to put the title on Joe versus Lesnar and the feud with Styles. Both times, I kind of thought they would. The match with Lesnar was so good. Many people mock the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, largely because of the name Great Balls of Fire. I loved it. I highly recommend people watch back because it is just an insanely high-quality pay-per-view that's well worth watching again. Guinness Gamer says, non-wrestling, I know you're a Liverpool fan. Guilty. Excited and or confident for the Man United game on Sunday. Both excited and confident. Not as confident as I have been. Ultimately, since the loss of Virgil van Dijk, I've been a little bit worried, and it doesn't look like we're bringing anyone in. So we have real defensive troubles, whereas Man United have really found their groove, and Bruno Fernandes is the one who's given it to them. I hope that we'll have Joel Matip back. I hope we'll have Diogo Jota back because he really hit the ground running. But I'm not particularly confident. Even as a Liverpool fan, I'm not as militant as a lot of fans. So as long as we get a great game, I'm happy. I'm happy with the winning streak that we've been on. And I believe that even if we lose that game, and we may well do, we will still have a great season. As difficult a season as it has been. Garen Edwards says, what's next for Biggie after Apollo? Good question. There is not a very well-defined intercontinental title scene at the minute. I think Baron Corbin will be revisiting that once he has had his match with Rey Mysterio on this week's SmackDown, which I would get to in the preview, but I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and get through them. Matt says, will NXT be an option for the winner of the Rumble, or was it just a one-off for Charlotte last year? Because I like the idea of the winner getting a shot at the NXT titles too. It wasn't a one-off. It is something that the WWE can revisit at any time. And this is something that they do quite often where they won't intentionally clarify certain rules. This is something you see with the Money in the Bank briefcase. The Money in the Bank briefcase has never been used across brands, but the WWE refuse to make it clear that you can only use it for one brand, just in case they want to leave that option open in case they have the option to use it later. Matt answers Garen's question by suggesting that Big E will face Seth Rollins. That's a good idea as well. Matt says Dakota Kai still has her Twitch channel. NXT isn't a part of the third-party ban right now. I haven't seen her on for a while. I'll have to go looking. I haven't seen her pop up in my notifications. Maybe there's something going on there. I'll have to check it. For anyone who doesn't follow Dakota Kai on Twitch, if she does still have her Twitch channel, go back and watch her Last of Us 2 playthrough. That was great. Really loved it. Also really love her friendship with Shayna Baszler and how they just keep popping up behind each other. Guinness Gamer says, I would love Malcolm Bivens to be called up and manage someone like Ricochet. It's the best of both worlds, something unique for Ricochet and covers his weaknesses on the mic. Ricochet has not been allowed to do many promos, and he's in an interesting position right now. I think he will eventually join Retribution so that Mustafa Ali can be his mic man. But that's not a bad idea either. I do think we need a few more managers on Raw and SmackDown, or just factions. Sean says, will Ember Moon be on the main roster ever again, or does she stay in NXT? To my knowledge, Ember Moon is very happy in NXT. She isn't having to wrestle as many matches, which is doing her the world of good, as it were. This gives her a lot of options. But when it comes to Ember Moon, I don't think she wants to, but she's the only person who can really answer that question. Guinness Gamer says, I just don't get it, Tom. The Wrestling Observer were completely wrong in their Ricochet report, yet no one seems to be going in on them, but you were scrutinized for the similar slight inaccuracies. I can't really comment on that. There are a number of websites which have made reports which have turned out to be inaccurate, or they've reported on rumor that hasn't come to pass. There are a lot of different websites which are able to do that without facing much scrutiny. I cannot say why I did face as much scrutiny as I did. I can only say that I did, and I've made a video about that, and I will leave it there. But I thank everyone for sticking with me despite the rumors and the crap that people come out with at times. Matt Hendricks says, Great Balls of Fire was a really good show despite the terrible name. Completely agree. Maddie Santos says, who do you think will be surprise entrants for women's and men's Rumble matches? I don't think there'll be many surprises. I don't think there'll be many surprises who aren't already there, or at least working backstage. So I think maybe the Road Dogg and Jeff Jarrett will be jumping in at some point. But outside of that, I don't think many names will be there. I think we will see Beth Phoenix. I think the biggest surprise will be a return for Edge. Matt says, I'm serious. If WWE doesn't name the next takeover February 14th, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, I'm going to be mad. There's been one St. Valentine's Day Massacre in the past, in February 1999. And I think they should definitely do that. If TakeOver is on February 14th, do it. You have relationships that are known about in NXT, and this means you can play off things. For example, if the main event is Johnny Gargano versus Finn Balor, you can play off that very easily via the St. Valentine's Day thing. There are other relationships in NXT, but I don't think they should really focus on them, but you could do things with that. Unknown Percent says, is Matt Riddle leaving WWE? I'm not aware of that. I believe he still has a contract for a while yet, until 2022 at least. Matt says NXT should have their own Money in the Bank match. I mean, that's a good call. I would like to see that. They've got a good history of ladder matches as well. There was a ladder match on the one show that they had, which got 2 5-star ratings from the Wrestling Observer, which, of course, we've mentioned a little bit in this stream so far. Ed Fries helpfully says Dakota was last live November 29th. It is now 15th of January, so that means a month and a half she has not been online. It may be that she has decided not to focus on that. She has been on Up, Up, Down, Down a few times. And I believe she was launching a channel with the Streamer House, or at least launching something with the Streamer House. But if she hasn't been online, it is really unfortunate in that regard. A lot of wrestlers moved to Twitch and they were able to really create something. They had the time to do it, but if they're not allowed to do it, they're not allowed to do it, and that's a real shame. Connecting people through wrestling. Welcome says, Aloha, watching from Oklahoma. Wonders of the internet. That always surprises me. That every now, like, I've got the names on here, and I can see everyone in that regard. But People are tuning in to watch little old me in Blackpool. It's really quite touching. Matt says, seems like Ali has heat from WWE after the Raw Talk promo talked about the piped-in crowd noise. There are rumors that he has heat, but if I had $1 for every time there was rumored backstage heat for someone, I'd be rich. So I don't entirely believe it. We will see if he gets the live microphone again, essentially. If he's on Raw Talk again, people are going to tune in. So I would let him have that microphone. But WWE aren't me. Oop, missed one. Sean Garner says, how many years before we see Shotzi on the main roster? Maybe a while. A lot of people in NXT are very happy staying in NXT, and Shotzi Blackheart may be one of them. She's getting a bit of a push right now. So it's really hard to read. She's one of those who's getting pushed right now, but usually, or at least historically with NXT, the ones who got the push would only push for like 3 months, and then they'd be straight to the main roster. That's not happening anymore. I think there'll be a few people from NXT looking at going to the main roster, but you look at Mercedes Martinez, she was moved to the main roster. She didn't like it, so she came back. It is unlikely that she'll be pushed, at least for a while, because they don't have anything for her creative because she wasn't there to write for. So we may not see her for a little while, but she did come back. Guinness Gamer says, do you think an outside Rumble win for Mustafa Ali could save Retribution? Unfortunately, no, I don't. I think good writing could save Retribution. I think good storylines could save Retribution. And I think feuding with someone maybe a little bit higher up the card. I think Hurt Business versus Retribution was really good, but it didn't go anywhere. I'd like to see that revisited. Ed Fries raised a lot of comments coming in. I'm trying to keep up, so apologies if I accidentally click more things, but please do keep those comments coming. Please do keep clicking like on the YouTube video. If you haven't, the YouTube stream, if you haven't yet, subscribe on YouTube and follow on Twitch if you're watching there. Ed Fries, my mod over on Twitch, thank you as always, Ed. I really do appreciate it. Says, will Carlito possibly be in the Rumble after the travel issues from Legends Night, as fans always seem to want him back? I've seen Carlito wrestle live over here in the UK. He's really popular considering he didn't get a run at the top, as it were. So I think that'd be a great call. And I think if he wasn't there for Legends Night because they didn't have anything big enough or at least worth the travel, the Royal Rumble would certainly be worth the travel. So that's a really good shout. Matt says, Adam Cole streamed on Twitch yesterday. I don't think I follow Adam Cole, which is a shame. Probably should. I liked the left, right stuff he was doing. I liked his Halo save with Tyler Breeze. Sorry, Guinness, I'll come right back to this. Not with Tyler Breeze, with Dion Madden. No, it was Tyler Breeze. It was Tyler Breeze. I played a lot of Halo when I was younger as a teenager, and I would always play with like 2 friends, and we'd play it 2-player co-op, and we just trade pads every now and then. And we had like as difficult as you could possibly be, and just kept going in that one. We had a lot of fun. Guinness says, this year needs to have a great Money in the Bank winner. Who would you have win it? Keith Lee, probably. I think he could do great things with it, or returning Aleister Black. But I think it needs to be someone who's going to win. Someone who's going to win at least. Also ask for male and female. So that's my male option. Female option. You guys ask really good questions. Ember Moon will be good. I want to say Alexa Bliss, but I don't really want double winners. I'd give it to Bianca Belair. Matt also says maybe she's taking a break from Twitch for a bit. Very possible. We'll see if she starts streaming again. I'm sure we'll see it. Sean says, do you ever see Elena Vega returning to WWE in the near future? No, I do not. However, a lot of people leave WWE on very negative terms. Jeff Jarrett is a good example. Chris Jericho is a good example. And Chris Jericho didn't leave on negative terms, but he's not that well thought of in WWE, unfortunately, right now because of how well he's leading the competition against them. But the WWE know money when they see it. If Zelina Vega returned, it'd be good money. Chris Jericho returned, it'd be real good money. So Jeff Jarrett returned. So I think Vince is very forgiving, and not much is really said about that. So if there was money in it, they would definitely do it. But I don't think she will choose to return. Just my opinion. And that says, I mean, if WWE wants to keep Io Shirai, keep her in NXT. Agree on that regard. Guinness Gamers says, who do you think will win the Dusty Classic? Is a toss-up between MSK and the Grizzly Young Veterans for me. I would like to see that match more, to be honest. The Grizzled Young Veterans can go very, very far. Imperium, I believe, is there as well. They have a good shot, but I think this is an ideal chance to make a new team. So MSK should go all the way for me. Sean also says, will Shotzi ever be NXT Women's Champion? She has a lot of years ahead of her career. A lot of years. It's impossible to say. I believe she will. Matt Hendricks, in response to Sean Garner, says if she can't use Twitch while in WWE, then she's not coming back. That is true of Zelina Vega. That was a large part of her reasoning, as she has explained it. She wants to work on Twitch. She potentially is making more money on Twitch than on WWE. So I don't blame her. I really don't. Unknown also says, any news about Braun Strowman? Last I heard, still injured, but he would be a good return for the Royal Rumble. Matt Hendricks says Carlito said he wasn't invited. Interesting, because the rumor mill did suggest that he just didn't have something big enough planned. Interesting. And also says, Dio Madden, who's that? Don't you mean Mace? Mace. I've met Dio Madden. He held a door open for me. Twice. Lovely guy. Very tall. Ed Fry says, Cole is on at the Chugs. No need to read this out. I'm still reading it out because Adam Cole's really fun on Twitch. So follow the Chugs. Matt Hendricks says, I'd give it to Alexa Bliss, and also says, I prefer Tony Storm to dethrone Io Shirai. It seems like they're trying Io and Tony to keep Io and Tony away from each other for a reason. I believe Io and Tony Storm were the second Mae Young Classic finale, and Tony Storm won that one. So that might be why they're trying to keep them a little bit separate. Right, I'm out of questions for now. There are currently a few people watching on Twitch and a few people watching on YouTube. If you don't already follow me on Twitch and you have a Twitch account, please do remember to jump over to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue and follow there. If you haven't already, please remember to click like on the YouTube video. That does help me grow, and subscribe if you haven't. So we've no more questions coming through just yet. I will let them accrue a little bit. We have been going for an hour, and I'm going to read what is left of my SmackDown preview. So it looks like for the Royal Rumble, we are going to get a rematch between Sasha Banks and Carmella. I feel they've really told about as much of this story as they can, but it looks like they are essentially killing time a little bit with this one in the build to whoever may face Sasha at Mania. So it looks like we might be getting a SmackDown winner of the Women's Royal Rumble purely to have a match in this. Carmella's really been carrying this side of the feud really well. It doesn't really have the heat that Sasha Banks and Bayley had, but nothing was going. They had years going into that feud, and I personally feel it didn't really maintain the heat as well as it could have done. Even though it started really well, I've got to say. The Hell in a Cell match was very good. Even though personally I prefer the Becky Lynch Sasha Banks one, I still feel they did really well. And Sasha Banks having 3 Hell in a Cell matches, of course the only women's Hell in a Cell matches, all of them featuring Sasha Banks, that is incredibly good work. And an Elimination Chamber in the making. And 2 Elimination Chambers too. A woman knows how to make history. The feud seems to continue. They are avoiding too much physical interaction, though they are now working on a tag team. I think it's very telling that Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair have been tagging together, especially if Bianca Belair is the one to win the Royal Rumble. That could work out for me. We also have announced the match between Rey Mysterio and Baron Corbin. Now, this hopefully will be the end of this feud. I'd like them to move on from this. But unfortunately, I know a lot of people are very down on Corbin, so they will say that about pretty much anything he's doing. I'm not. I'm a big fan of Baron Corbin. I think he's incredibly talented at being detestable. That is a skill. Like, that's a great skill. Triple H infamously built his career on being the easiest man to hate in the world. And he was fantastic at it. That's how he built himself. Stephanie McMahon went during the McMahon-Helmsley regime. They were just so hateable. So hateable. Baron Corbin, for me, works in that regard. And I feel that's why Triple H and Baron Corbin actually have this really clear friendship. He is, as I'll read that out in a bit, Mags, but I completely agree with you. Corbin is a character actor. He's playing a role. So I would like to see them put this feud of Rey Mysterio to bed, but it depends where they go next. I'd like to see maybe Buddy Murphy move into the Intercontinental picture, but he's tied up at the minute. And whatever plan they had for the relationship with Aliyah Mysterio and Buddy Murphy, Now the buddy's been off TV for ages. It's out the window. It's gone. So let's see if they connect. Let's see how they develop what's going on there, how they keep things going, and how they move forwards. Because I think there are ways they can do that, but I would like to see maybe Murphy against Big E, at least for a week. I'd like to see maybe Mysterio versus Sami Zayn. I think that would be a great feud. And I'd like to see Corbin against Big E, at least for a spoiler section, before moving on to taking on the top faces, as it were, because he's of that level where he's there. Sorry, guys. I'm a sneezer. I'm a silent sneezer, but I'm a sneezer nonetheless. I've been going an hour and I haven't sneezed. I'm really proud of myself for that. Oh, it may happen again. Dangers of sneezing. Dangers of sneezing. Last week, well, I'll say last week, Monday, just constantly scratching my nose. Don't know why. Genuinely don't. Genuinely don't. But I'd like to see Corbin and Mysterio move on. Hopefully this is the end of what happened there. In addition, there is more going on with Billie Kay. The Riot Squad sort of added Billie Kay to the team. So we may see more tag team women's wrestling. I think this is the ideal time for the Riot Squad to take on Bayley and Carmella. At least that could be a way to connect all those in a way that doesn't take much away from the actual rest of SmackDown, doesn't take too much time up. Pardon me. In addition, what am I talking about? Seth Rollins, news on that. He was advertised to return a couple of weeks ago. He did not return. Now, that there is speculation as to why that is. It may be that he was supposed to return when he got the news about Brody Lee and decided against it. It may be that he was needed at home still. There are no end of possibilities. It may be he's being saved for the Royal Rumble. There is legitimately no end of possibilities. But I don't think it'll be too long before Seth Rollins does reappear, because I think we will be seeing him at least at the Rumble, if not in the build-up to the Royal Rumble. He is needed to add a bit of star power, as it were. But we will have to see as well, if Becky Lynch does return. I suspect, I obviously believe she will return, but I want to, I can't say for certain that she will return. Is she now going to be on SmackDown and not on Raw? Because logically, Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, when it does eventually happen, is a Raw feud. Hard to say. So that's everything I've got. Oh, nope. Sonya Deville's back. Really happy Sonya Deville's back. Kind of hope she wins the Royal Rumble as well. At the minute, however, she is acting as in a GM role, similar to Baron Corbin in the way he was the sheriff. Was he a sheriff? He was sheriffy. I don't know. He was something like that. And essentially what that meant was that he didn't take much of the responsibility and was undermining. Sonya Deville could also do that. And this is a great way to bring her back without ruining the storyline that they had, where she was let go from the company. I think they could still do a lot of good stuff. I would be interested to see her position in the contract signing that happens tonight between Roman Reigns and Adam Pearce, because she could be very heavily involved in that. Right, to read what we've had since. Guinness says, if Raw SmackDown could get a legend to be an authority figure similar to William Regal, only coming in when needed, who would you have it be? Always like the idea of Fit Finlay. Fit Finlay's not a bad shout. He's got everything he needs there. Adam Pearce has been doing a very respectable job, I feel. I'd also kind of like it to be William Regal, even if he just appears on the big screen. There are a few people it could be. And I really liked the duality when it was Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. And I would like Paige back. I think she's the best GM the WWE's ever had. I'd love Paige back. And as we're talking about Twitch channels, she's a great follow on Twitch. Hendrick says, Adam Cole just seems to be a down-to-earth dude. Yeah, he does. It's great, isn't it? It's great. One of the best things about the internet in general is that I, for example, can send a message to Xavier Woods saying, I really love Battle of the Brands, which is back now, by the way, and I've already started watching it. And I'm going to be tweeting Xavier Woods about it along the way because I really enjoy it. And I'd like to do it here on these channels. Something like that at least, but I don't have the open source coding for the game that he uses that allows him to do it long distance. If I did, which is what I'm going to be tweeting him about. So it's nice just being able to connect with people like that. It's one of the reasons I love Dakota Kai's work. I followed her back when she was still Evie wrestling in Japan. and we were able to connect a lot more then. Now she's obviously a much bigger star. She gets tweeted out a lot more. She's not seeing what I'm messaging. We're not connecting. Shame, but when you're a big star, you're a big star. I get it. My Hendrix says, I think Bayley's winning the Rumble. 2021 should have been Sasha winning the Rumble and challenging Bayley at Mania. But of course, WWE blew their load so quickly. You guys crack me up sometimes. I think Bayley will be out of the title picture for a few months, if not a year or so now. I think she had a very long reign, and it'll be similar to Alexa Bliss, who was told you won't be challenging for the title for the foreseeable future. Alexa Bliss has basically made the most out of that in the way she's been working. Ed says to everyone on Twitch, welcome to everyone watching here. Hopefully you're enjoying me. Please remember to follow and have notifications on to know when Tom goes live for wrestling previews on Monday and Friday, then sometimes during the week with gaming streams like Football Manager and Bloodborne that was played this week. Now, I know you said that for the people in Twitch, you didn't think I was going to click on it, but you raised very good points. So my Twitch schedule at the moment is Monday and Friday, same as here on YouTube, WWE Raw and SmackDown previews. You can catch them on either YouTube or Twitch. On Twitch, I'm also doing gaming content that people here on YouTube aren't necessarily that interested in. That being Football Manager, that will be every Tuesday. Bloodborne will be every Thursday. I'm experimenting at the moment, getting my face in the stream for Bloodborne. I've not had the best luck, so I may not get my face, but you'll still get my voice. If you're interested in those, please do pop over to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue and click follow there. Also, for the Royal Rumble, I'll be doing a big viewing party, which will essentially be like 7 hours of show, with the pre-show, the show, and the post-show, all right here on YouTube and on Twitch, hopefully with some guests for you to enjoy as well, and hopefully with some of you. Sean Garner says, is Sasha a babyface at the moment? Yes, she very much is. Sinanu, welcome. Not a name I know, so thank you for joining me. Says, I think Retribution are not as dominant as before. Completely agree. I don't think they're dominant at all, and that's a real shame. The booking has been inconsistent, to say the best. Matt says, Baron Corbin blocked me because I called him boring. Well, that is just rude. Mag says, as I mentioned earlier, Corbin is one of the best character actors in the WWE. Completely agree. Sean Garner says, who does Orton feud with after The Fiend? Hard to say. Probably Edge. Probably Edge again. Oh, wow. Mags, calm down, mate. Calm down. Matt says, I'm legit shocked. I just read that SmackDown was rewritten last night and doesn't look like it's going to be rewritten hours before the show. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Now, admittedly, anyone could have guessed that one because they announced things last night. Really late last night for me, but probably late afternoon for anyone in the US. But SmackDown, they really hit their rhythm. They really know what they're doing with it now. Pretty much from the moment Roman Reigns came back, they stopped making up as they went along, and they started having a plan. So it's all set. It really is. Raw is having the problems now. And it may just be very much a situation of where's Vince looking this week? Guinness Gamer says, do you watch much AEW, Tom? I watch some. I wouldn't say I watch that much. I don't watch much wrestling on Wednesday nights because there's a lot of wrestling. I need a day off, essentially. My days off are Wednesday and Sunday. Pardon me. Unless there's a pay-per-view on. So I watch as much as I can. I really enjoy some of what they do there, but I'm not that interested in some of the wrestling matches. The tag division isn't that interesting to me because as good as wrestling is when it's like in the ring, that's not really what I'm there for. If you follow me, I'm more there for the storylines. So I enjoy the storyline stuff. I really enjoy it. Inner Circle and the like. I enjoy what John Moxley's been doing. I really love what Kenny Omega's doing at the moment. But beyond that, I don't really know many people too well. Unknown Percent says, I think we can see Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns feud. That may involve Baron Corbin going face, and that is not happening. Matt Hendricks says, I read that Fox over-matured the Rollins thing since WWE themselves never actually confirmed it. Possible. That is possible. If they advertised it when they shouldn't have, it's very much a thing. Recently, I believe it was BT Sport, their Twitter account put out a tweet saying that the match between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, which was advertised for one day but didn't actually take place, was for the WWE Championship, when in the end it was not. So these things do happen. Thank you, Ed. That's it. He wasn't the sheriff. I knew that sounded ridiculous. He was the constable of Raw. Constable. Matt also joining up on that one. Thank you guys for helping me out with that. Guinness Gamer says, what's Battle of the Brands? Battle of the Brands is the Up, Up, Down, Down series where Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze, using their other names, as it were, essentially run the WWE. So they are playing SmackDown versus Raw 2006, I believe it is. Xavier Woods is managing Raw. No, Xavier Woods is managing SmackDown, and Tyler Breeze is managing Raw. They take a load of the superstars of that era and a few that they've used as creator wrestlers that they made, and then had to change them because some of them were released in the middle of it. And recently they had to change someone, a female wrestler, to Toni Storm because a female wrestler left the company. I think we know who that was. And they basically battle out for which one's the better show. It's actually really compelling, and I've really enjoyed learning the algorithms and things, not least because Xavier Woods is the most horrible loser, and he knows it, and I like that, and I respect that so much. And I don't know if Tyler Breeze is a horrible loser because he's only just started losing. I'm excited to learn. Guinness Gamer says, do you play any wrestling booking games? I wish I did. There aren't many out there that I know of that are appealing to me. For a while I had 2K18 and I used the universe mode there, but there's only so much you can do. There really is only so much you can do. If there are more games out there and we could try and make something of it, I'd be interested. We could do like a competition here or some sort of quiz. I've been thinking about maybe doing a quiz here. If you guys are interested, do let me know. I'll ask some questions when I run out of questions from you guys because the actual preview is done at this point. Noob says, hello, welcome, Noob. Thank you for joining me here. Matt says, the Royal Rumble will be the longest no-crowd COVID show for WWE. Yes, it will. This is if you are not counting WrestleMania, which was 2 shows. They've tried to keep all of their shows down to 3 hours. That's why SummerSlam was essentially 2 shows as well. They just called it the second part Payback and had a few rematches in it. So it's one of those. They split the show so that it didn't feel overloaded. Fans, it's the most baffling thing. When fans were there, they would have fans sit for a 9-hour WrestleMania. Stopped, they're not making anyone sit down for that long. What the hell? Guinness Gamers says, do you think The Fiend will return the Royal Rumble match to eliminate Randy Orton? Would be strange for him not to win it. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe if Randy Orton is in the Royal Rumble, it is because Edge is returning, and Edge will eliminate Randy Orton, or vice versa. But there's a lot of different ways they could play it. It depends whether or not they are having a match between The Fiend and Randy Orton. Noob and Coast says, what are your thoughts on Charlotte's rant on Twitter yesterday about the way she's being booked? Wouldn't call it a rant. I would say Charlotte is entitled to defend herself. I think she referred to the article in question, so she clearly read it and disagreed with it. I do think, though, we need to ensure that people can still write opinion pieces. So we need to make sure people aren't necessarily entirely shut down. It is a shame that Daily DDT, who I did used to work for briefly, have a bit of history with Charlotte, unfortunately. Previously making a joke about R-Truth was wearing a blonde wig to hide when he was 24/7 champion. And they did say something along, make a joke saying looked like Charlotte, and she did not take kindly to it, which you can understand. So they do have a bit of history. And there are people running that account, and they try the best they can. The same with Charlotte. She's a person as well. So for me, I'd like it if maybe they could just quickly have a conversation. Someone from Daily DDT could say to Charlotte directly, there was no offense meant. However, she's entitled to her opinion as well, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a rant. The problem for me is fans who decided that one or the other were buried and that someone had to be right or wrong. They are both entitled to their opinions. No one has to be right or wrong. She was sharing her opinion on an opinion piece. I think Charlotte is one of the greatest women wrestlers there has ever been. But some of her reigns have been quite short in many ways to put other people over, particularly when it comes to Bayley. She won a championship from Becky and then immediately dropped it to Bayley. She had a pay-per-view win over Bayley and then Bayley turned heel. There are storyline reasons that Charlotte has had the reigns she's had. There are. So it's hard to really comment on too much. I'm a fan of Charlotte. I like the way she's been delivering the matches that she has, and she has been working extremely hard. She hasn't vanished. That's not the case. However, people are also entitled to their opinion in opinion articles. Matt Hendricks says, if Orton faces Edge at Mania, then who does Bray face? A mixed tag of Alexa versus Triple H and Stephanie, or Triple H one-on-one? That's a really good idea. I can see a mixed tag. I could definitely see a mixed tag. A mixed tag with Edge and Beth Phoenix would be absolutely lovely, but then that sort of eliminates Orton. Who else is there that's actually in a pairing? Could it potentially be Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella? Don't think so, because I think Brie Bella's had a child recently as well. But a mixed tag would be a great idea. Maybe it'd end up being The Miz and Marie. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It depends what Alexa Bliss is doing, but The Fiend will definitely have a big match at Mania. It should be against a big deal, as it were. I'd like it to be Aleister Black, but we'll see. The Fiend versus Kevin Owens could be a lot of fun, but they're on a different brand. Hard to say. Can we have Fiend Goldberg, but can we do it right this time? Matt also said Fiend versus Drew could be a lot of fun. Matt also says join the Dark Order. I think you've been co-opted, sir. Guinness says it seems Randy has a crowded road to Mania, maybe a triple threat with Fiend, Orton, and Edge. Yeah, sounds good to me. That'd be great. You could do a lot with that. And as well, the Fiend is actually pretty well suited for triple threats. If you think back to Lesnar versus Rollins versus Cena, the Fiend could play the Lesnar role there of just being basically an unstoppable monster. Ace Shock Welcome says Moose is replacing Alex Shelley. I'm guessing you're referring to Impact there, which unfortunately I have not watched this week. Matt Hendricks says SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 is a great game, but 2007 is my favorite. They were going to go on to 2007, but for some reason they stuck with 2006. Not entirely sure as to why. I think it was explained, but I'm just not entirely sure. Ace says Battle of the Brands and Uno Games, The Party, my favorite show on the channel. The Uno Games are hilarious. I will never forgive Adam Cole for one of the worst Uno plays I have ever seen. Cesaro just essentially beat him on an Uno board. He'll never recover. Now, Hendrick says, I think they had to change Elena Vega. I'm just going to click that, leave it there, and then move on. A says, Breeze on Uno Games is a sole loser. It's important in these things to be an entertainer. I watch Smosh and a lot of their stuff. I'm a big fan of some of the comedians they've got working there. Sometimes you need someone to just be a sole loser because it's entertaining. Ed says over on Twitch, if you're looking for a board game online, there is Book It Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. It's a great little wrestling booking game. I will look into that. That's a really good idea, isn't it? We can do something with that. Because I can also share my screen, much like I have done for Football Manager over on Twitch. So I could potentially set something up in a game like that. Is there any competitive element to that where maybe other people can jump in? Matt Hendricks says, I don't know, Charlotte seemed to play the feminist card and that didn't help her case. Daily DDT prides itself on having a very diverse writing staff because they have a very diverse writing staff. When Charlotte's calling them out for essentially saying, you're not saying this about any men, it may be that she's basically trying to play the card of focusing on Daily DDT and what they deliver. I am not sure she necessarily played a feminist card. I think she was asking for a quality that she didn't see. Now, this article was purely about Charlotte Flair, so I'm not sure you would have had those comparisons, but she did say she looked through the site, not just the article. Ace says, I just wish she would address the booking issues she had in her recent NXT run. I don't think we can really ask that of a character. Maybe, and hopefully, the next time she's in interviews, someone will be brave enough to ask that, because a lot of people have had Charlotte Flair, have interviewed Charlotte Flair, and they've chosen not to ask these questions. There are also people who have asked about this. If I had an interview with Charlotte Flair, I would definitely ask about her opinion on her booking. And I'd imagine she would give very good detail on it, because I'd imagine, based on that tweet, she has a lot to say. Matt says, to me, I don't think a title reigns are memorable. There are a couple that I don't think are particularly memorable, but I think that's the case for quite a lot of people, to be completely honest with you. For example, in his first 3 championship reigns, The Rock only had one main event, in one pay-per-view main event. Ace Shock says Alistair was drafted to SmackDown. Then I'm sure he could get some great matches, but at the minute we haven't seen him for a while, and they tend to move things around when that happens. Matt Hendricks says Miz and Otis are on different brands and they had a match at Hell in a Cell. That was sort of wrapping up, really. It's just one of those where Hell in a Cell always seems to be the one, and I think this is one of the reasons they had the Rollins Fiend storyline they did, because the Fiend was moving to SmackDown. They didn't want to change all the titles around. This may be why they hot-shotted Sasha Banks and Bayley. They tend to do that in that time, right when they have a draft. They've already got the storyline set up, so they just play it out. Matt also says, I love their Among Us playthroughs. I haven't watched many of them. I will explain more going on there. H-Shock says, Cesaro clicked on red. Guinness Gamer says, by this time next year, who would you have as a top champs on the WWE free shows? By top champs, do you mean male? Or are you asking male and female? If you can just clarify that. Ace says, which Smosh? There's quite a lot of Smosh. I watch games and I watch Pit. I don't watch much of main because I prefer the people than the skits. H-Shock, a lot of stuff just came through. H-Shock says, have you played Ungame? Honestly, never even heard of it. Please do tell me what that is. Ace also says, people railed on Roman before his heel turn. Yeah, for like 5 years. I loved Roman Reigns. Guinness Gamer says, there's no doubt Charlotte is talented, but she's been given so many title reigns because of her last name to be rushed into breaking her dad's record. I don't necessarily agree with that. Well, I will say she has far more title reigns than anyone else, and I feel it'd be good at this point if she didn't have title reigns for a while, just to let other people catch up for a little bit. But I wouldn't say it's because of the name. I think she's an incredibly talented wrestler. And I think the fact that she's a heel means that they've been able to slot her into things. There is some level of convenience to this, but it's not just her. This happened with Triple H as well. This happened with John Cena as well. Some of his title reigns have been incredibly short. A lot of people have had really short title reigns. I think that's unfortunately the nature of the beast in that regard. She's been used for that, but there is no doubt you can't blame her for that. That is very much the booking. Matt Hendrick says, I didn't like that she got called up in 2015. She immediately was given the Divas title 2 months in. The roster at that time needed call-ups. And for that year's WrestleMania, the 3 call-ups were the triple threat. So yes, she got the championship. It may have been because she was the most marketable. It may have been the name value in that regard. But they decided to go with her. I would have loved Becky Lynch to get a bit more at that time, but we are where we are. She eventually, to be fair, Becky Lynch not getting the opportunity there is kind of what made her so popular. Ace Shock says, I was one of the people who wanted Charlotte to win the NXT Women's title, knowing the trust people put in Triple H of NXT, but that run proved me wrong in the worst way. It wasn't what was expected, I'll definitely say that. If she was there to star make, and it was just going to be match after match after match, just basically going through the whole women's division, giving them the spotlight in the way that an Asuka did beforehand, for example, and a Shayna Baszler did before that, then there would have been potential there. But that is not what ended up happening, and it may have been because she needed to take time off, so they got the belt off her as quick as possible, gave her a match with Asuka, the injury from Nia Jax, and now here we are. And it says, go male top 3 champs. I'm going to refresh my memory a little bit of the question, to be honest. This time next year, so 1 year. Okay. I don't want the Fiend to have a championship because I don't feel he needs a championship. So for me, I wouldn't still have Roman Reigns as champion, but I would have Roman Reigns as champion. I would have him maybe lose to Daniel Bryan and then regain it sometime in November, because in the build to WrestleMania, a heel champion is fantastic. Over on Raw, I wouldn't have Drew stay in the main event picture for too much longer because of the danger of overexposure, and he's been the focus of everything for a while. So I think on Raw, I would probably have Finn Balor. I'd like to move him over to Raw and just give him the exact same run he's had in NXT, but on Raw. I think he could do fantastic things with it. In NXT, I would probably have someone like Andrade or Aleister Black. Both people who could do a lot more than they have had the opportunity to do. And again, that will be like the star maker, just having main event match after main event match. Ed says, with the success of Firefly Funhouse at WrestleMania 36, what 3 others would you like to see in a Funhouse style retelling? My choices would be Seth, Triple H, and Hogan. Hogan would be great in that, but I don't think they will ever allow The Fiend to do that because 100% The Fiend is playing certain recordings that Hogan features in. Bray Wyatt doesn't really hold back, as we know. Triple H would be a really good call. Seth Rollins would be a really good call. So if we're going to go Firefly Funhouse, I'd like to see a Randy Orton one. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think I'd like to bring Batista back for one. He'd be fantastic. And there are many people who are in it now. You could basically do all of Daniel Bryan's career. And I'm not talking WWE. I'm talking the whole damn thing. I would love that. I also think it's a great opportunity for someone like Steve Austin. Just to get him in. He won't take any bumps, but he would be there and he'd be involved in that. So I think there's a lot of people that could really benefit from it. Matt says, I think we can all agree that Charlotte didn't need to be added into that Mania match with Ronda and Becky. Charlotte was not added into that Mania match. Becky Lynch was added into that Mania match. The original planned main event for that year's WrestleMania was Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. Even as recently as the November beforehand, when Becky Lynch took the hit from Nia Jax, that's when they added Becky to the match. The original plan was Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. And I believe it would have been Becky Lynch versus Asuka as a heel, because they wanted Becky Lynch to be a heel, and the fans just didn't take it. Charlotte was not added to that match. Mal says Io should have pinned Charlotte instead of Rhea. It would have meant more, definitely. And Triple H at the time did say, you'll know what this is all about in a couple of months. We don't know. Whatever the plan was, it didn't happen. Guinness Gamer says they can right the wrongs of last year by letting Rhea win the Rumble, then beating Charlotte for the title. See, here's the thing. That's a good idea, but that means Charlotte winning the title and having a very short title reign. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about Charlotte having short, maybe quite forgettable title reigns that are all about putting other people over. This is what she's talking about as well. It is a good idea. It's a big deal to beat Charlotte Flair. It'd be great for Rhea Ripley to get that off her back. But it does mean Charlotte Flair gets another title reign, gets closer to beating her dad's record, and has the title for a very short time. So it means fans will be against her. It will. So it's a good idea and a bad idea. I would like to see that match. I wouldn't necessarily like to see it for the title. Hendrick says, I think Bray Wyatt will be WWE champion by the end of 2021. He needs a very long championship reign if that's going to happen. And I think he needs a few more people than just Alexa Bliss in his corner, because I think that would be a great time for Wyatt versus Roman. Wyatt versus Reigns, I should say. I think that would just be a great time for it. Matt Hendricks says, be given a fair run with the title and not 7 days or 3 months. Yeah, agreeing with me there. I didn't read your comment until after I said that. H-Shock says, Firefly Fun has a Ric Flair. That would probably last about 4 hours. The man's done a lot in his career. Just a lot. Going to pause briefly with the questions there and quickly say to everyone who has joined me a big thank you for that. We have a few people watching on Twitch and a few people watching on YouTube. If you haven't already on YouTube, please do remember to subscribe and click like on the video. You can always be a big support for me by clicking like and sharing the video. And on Twitch, if you are there, please do remember to click follow. If you already follow me on YouTube, but you have a Twitch account, please do jump over to Twitch and twitch.tv/Tom Colohue and follow there. That's a big help to me going forwards with my career, where I'm trying to launch a bit more. Because to be completely honest, I think there is a lot for my future in it. And I would like to keep this going, get some more people, get some more questions, and grow. At YouTube, I won't be able to essentially make anything of an income until I have at least 1,000 subscribers. Twitch is only 50. So with YouTube, I'm halfway there, but that's an extra 500. With Twitch, not that many needed. Not that many. Okay, I'm going to go through the last few questions and then I'm going to wrap it up. I've been here an hour and a half so far. Matt says, given that fans wanted Becky versus Ronda at Mania and not having Charlotte involved after Becky won the Rumble is what I mean. fair enough. I get what you're saying there. I think that match will happen. I think we'll still have Becky versus Ronda. Yes, it's the match everybody wanted. I think that one-on-one is coming. And I think that's why the win at WrestleMania was inconclusive. It was a bit of bad luck on Ronda Rousey's behalf, really, to get pinned as she did, especially when you consider the ref unfortunately botching the count. So I think that match will still happen. But Ronda Rousey has not been to WWE for a long time. She, to my knowledge, is in constant contact. That's why she was at the head office a while ago. Why there was a picture of her at head office, I should say. She's been there more times. But she will definitely be back. But when that happens, we'll have to see. Ace says, have Asuka and Charlotte drop the tag titles to the Riot Squad and have them defend in NXT. I'm not sure who's going to take the titles from Asuka and Charlotte. I would like the Riot Squad to at least have a run with the tag title at some point soon. They're doing good. They're doing really well. I don't think Asuka and Charlotte is a long-term pairing for tag team championships. But I think in addition, while they have the belts, get them to defend them in NXT. But it's difficult right now because of COVID, as of many things. Matt says, add Killian Dane and Abyss to Fiend's faction with Bliss and maybe Nikki Cross with her old sanity gimmick. Possibly. That works. Not necessarily Abyss. He has no interest in being a wrestler again. Killian Dane, though, is, I feel, a very good shout. I think there is someone else who's a really good shout, Dexter Lumis. I think he'd be a perfect addition there as sort of an enforcer for the Fiend. That would just be great. You have the Fiend light cut down. The Fiend music plays. And then it's Dexter Lumis behind Randy Orton. Possibility there. If we're going to do Fiend versus Roman Reigns, then I feel we need to have warring factions. Jimmy and Jey Uso, Naomi with Roman. I like the idea of having Nikki Cross pair up with Alexa Bliss, basically making a choice. Happy with that. Killian Dane's a good shout there, not just for the relationship angle. Ultimately, Nikki Cross and Killian Dane are married. And when I last interviewed Nikki Cross, she did mention that Killian Dane is obviously her ideal partner for a mixed match challenge. Which, can we do one of those again? I miss it. Star Wars Lounge, welcome back. Says, hey Tom, good to see you back at it again. Been following your updates on Twitter. Hope you are doing good now. I uploaded a video about a week ago stating where I was, what happened, and that yes, I am now back Mondays and Fridays, same time. So 6 p.m. my time, which was an hour and a half ago, whatever your time is. I will be right here with these live streams, looking to grow here on YouTube and in fact on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. So welcome back. Glad to see you back, and I look forward to fielding more questions in the future. Matt says, Asuka was screwed out of her Mania 35 program because of WWE's booking. Can't disagree with that. But also she was an unfortunate victim of Becky Lynch taking off the way she did. A says, have a good night, Tom. Same to you, sir. And Matt says, I believe WWE was planning Bray Wyatt versus The Authority, and Bray started a face turn in 2016. Very possible, but I feel it would ultimately have ended in Wyatt versus Reigns. They are the ultimate rivals after all. That is all the questions I've had so far. That is the first time I've flubbed my lines. It took me an hour and 33 to do it. I'm really quite proud of that. I hope I've been able to keep you entertained for the hour and 33. Over on Twitch, I am going to be doing a raid. So I'm going to be passing you over to Robotron, which is a comedy show. Hopefully something of interest, but he is a wrestling fan. He's quite popular. And I won't be only sending people there, but I will be doing that. And in the meantime, I am going to be shutting down here. Thank you to everyone who has joined me. Please do remember to click. Oh, Adam Cole is on as well if you want to follow at the Chugs. So I'll make sure to follow him so in future I can send you that way as well. Thank you to everyone who has joined. Hope you enjoy SmackDown. I will see you next on Monday for the Monday Night Raw preview. And of course, don't forget, I will be doing a Royal Rumble watch along. Please do keep that in mind, because if you have any streaming set up, I may be asking people to get involved in that. It'll be a very long stream, and I just hope some of you or all of you can make it. Thank you to everyone who has joined. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.